Hi friends, this will be a little bit of a different video for me. Last time you all saw me, I was a blubbering mess over what was going on with Wednesday. I'm feeling a lot better now. I did record a video last week. I just did not get around to posting it, and I will post that at some point. Of course, it was a much happier and sort of educational video. I will post it at some point. I just didn't get around to it. It's been a busy couple weeks for us. I'm furious today, and I want to talk to you about why I foster and why we need the child welfare system. As broken and flawed as it is, I want to tell you about why we absolutely need it in this country. So if you're interested in that, stick around. But first, if you're new here, my name is Anna Leonora. Together with my husband, Jason, we are foster parents in real life. And here on my channel From the Fosters, we do foster parenting life together, and we raise awareness for the foster care system. So if any of that interests you, then please consider liking the video, subscribing to my channel down below. While you're down there, don't forget to hit your post notification bell so that you don't miss when I post any new videos like this, and so you can join my growing cyber family here on YouTube. I want to start by saying that I realize what I'm about to talk about is controversial. I realize that it's going to make people uncomfortable and even angry, but someone's got to say it. So I'm going to say it. Listen. In the last month, I have read 2 articles about children who have died in my area. Like, this isn't even nationwide. This is specifically like within very close driving distance to where I live. 2 children have died, one from severe neglect and one from abuse at the hands of their parents / caregivers. There are people out there that are calling for disbanding CPS. And I don't want to call any specific people out, but there are even people who have commented on some of my videos, sharing their stories with me about how CPS has wronged them, how CPS took their children without any evidence or whatever the case may be. I know there are several people on TikTok, which is a super popular platform right now, who are in custody battles and having issues with custody of their children, who call for disbanding the child welfare system. While I don't believe any child should be taken from their parent without just cause and without sufficient evidence that that child is being neglected or abused, we have to have the welfare system. I get that it is broken. I get that it is flawed, and I get that it needs reform. I say that all the time, and I will continue to say that. I will continue to do what I can, my little part, in lobbying for change in the foster care and child welfare system. But we cannot disband it. I'm not going to name names because these children are so close to home that I don't want to violate their privacy. But if you have not yet seen the trial of Gabriel Fernandez on Netflix, please do so. Yes, there were mistakes made in that case. Obviously, Gabriel ended up deceased from abuse. He was abused to death, basically, if you haven't seen it, at the hands of his mother and stepfather. When I talk about needing reform, there's a lot of parts about the child welfare system that needs reform. But one of the things that makes me so angry as a parent, as a foster parent, as someone in this world, yes, birth parents deserve rights, and yes, they deserve chances to get their children back. Absolutely. I've said it a million times. I'll say it a million times more. I'm all for reunification when it is safe and healthy for the children. However, there are cases where it's not safe and healthy for the children. And yet, the way the laws are written, those birth parents still get rights to those kids and get them back and then do far more damage to them than they did the first time around, or the second time around, or the third time around, or the fourth time around, or however many times it takes. I personally know a child who was abused significantly, and then reunified with a parent, and within a couple weeks was beat within an inch of that child's life. That child has been or is being adopted, and their parents have had felony child abuse charges that they have pled guilty to and will be on their records forever and blah, blah, blah. But there were red flags in that case, and that child should have never gone home in the first place, should have never gone back to that birth family. But the way the laws are written and the decisions the judge made, that child went home and then within weeks was beat almost to death. That child is lucky to be alive because he almost wasn't, okay? I know that child personally. So these stories hit really close to home for me. And within the last month, there was a little girl found in my local area, not like immediate local area, but within, a very close radius to where I live. A little girl who was found that had been neglected and starved to death by her caregivers. She had had previous CPS involvement. And then this week, within this last week, news broke about a little boy in my immediate area, not in my county, but the direct neighboring county that I'm in all the time. He was beat to death by his father and stepmom, or I think that was the story. Yeah, father and stepmom. And there was CPS involvement there too. That child had been given custody to his mother. There was domestic violence between the mother and father. There were reports that the mother did something to the father, so the child was taken from the mother, and then the father got him. Whatever the case may be. That child was given back to his father and his stepmother when there was known abuse issues in the family, and he was beat to death. He died from the abuse that he sustained. Gabriel Fernandez is a name that many people know these days because they watched the documentary. When I talk about the system needing reform, there's a lot of parts to the system that need reform. And I would never say that any parent deserves to lose their child unjustly, unfairly, without evidence. But the way the laws are written, birth parents have more rights than anybody else in the foster care system, right? The birth parents have the upper hand. Even when they don't have their child, they still have rights to their child, and they still get to make certain decisions regarding their children. And there's still priorities that even if they aren't necessarily a safe, stable home, the way the laws are written, the children could still be sent back to them. People on the fostering groups that I'm in on Facebook, a lot of them talk about these situations as being extreme and very rare and things that you don't see very often. It doesn't happen super often. It's rare. These circumstances, they don't happen that much. That's just flat freaking false. People don't want to admit that children are dying at the hands of their caregivers and biological parents and other biological family members that are their primary caregiver at rates much higher than people are willing to admit. because it's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable to believe that. It's uncomfortable to think that. And people don't want to admit it. But in my local area, within immediate driving distance of where I live, I can name 5 cases within the last 2 or 3 years. And you might say, okay, well, 2 or 3 years within a couple counties. Those are just the ones I know about, first of all. Second of all, 5 is 5 too many, period. No child should ever die or come within inches of death at the hands of their primary caregiver. I also realize there are some cases where children are dying in foster care. So I'm not saying that foster care is always the best solution. I'm not saying that all foster parents are perfect, because they're not. Although I would hope that most foster agencies treat their foster parents the way my agency treated us, which is we had to pass an extensive background check, multiple background checks, and we had to have a psychological eval. We had to have a physical eval. We had to have classes. It was not easy to become a foster parent in my county. So you would hope the really bad ones are weeded out by this process. But not all foster parents are saints, and I'm not trying to say that. But there is something wrong in this country. The children are dying at the rates that they are dying at the hands of their caregivers. And I'm really mad about it, because when I read that article this week about this little boy who died at the hands of his father and stepfather, because CPS, because the way the laws are written, I'm not blaming the social workers. The way the laws are written, this child had to be given to his father and stepmother, even though there was known abuse issues. That hit me hard, because I know people who know people that fostered that child. So it's 2 degrees away or whatever. And it reminded me of the case of the little boy that I know personally, who was reunified with his mother and then beat within an inch of his life. Something has to change, but I can tell you that this is why I foster. It makes people incredibly uncomfortable to talk about why these children are in foster care and what has happened to them. But this happens far, far too often, that these children are abused and neglected. Far too often. It's a problem. You see cases, there's this girl on TikTok, she goes by Digital Princess or something like that, who was just arrested for felony child neglect. And off of a technicality, her case got dismissed and she has her kid back. She left her young child at home so she could go party or something with no adult supervision. And the child woke up in the night. No adults in the home. He was scared. He went outside crying, and the neighbors found him and called the cops. That's just the time that she's been caught. What about times she hasn't been caught? And she's sitting here flaunting, making these videos on TikTok about how she's back and people are big mad about it. And her case was dropped and all this. And there's been no accountability at all about what's happened to her child. And she still has custody of her kid. I'm hoping she learned her lesson and it won't happen again. And I'm hoping that child is safe and fine. But this crap happens all the time, and people don't want to see it because it's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable to know. It's uncomfortable for me to know that children are being beat and abused and neglected to the point of near death far more often than anybody realizes. But we cannot disband CPS. We can fight to reform it. make changes that are in the children's best interest, because that's what the system should be about, is what's in the children's best interest, not what's in the foster parents' best interest, not necessarily what's in the bio parents' best interest, not what's in the social worker's best interest, but what's in the children's best interest. We can fight for that, but we can't get rid of CPS. And I'm sorry to anybody that has been wronged by CPS or had their children removed for reasons that were unnecessary or whatever. And that shouldn't happen either. But we cannot disband CPS, because far too often children are dying or near death. They're suffering and in misery quietly. People don't know about it. And that's not okay. That's why I foster, because these children need a safe, stable, loving home. I urge you that if you feel uncomfortable by this video, if these topics make you feel yucky or not right, I urge you to do the research. Look in your local area, look in your state, and see how many children have died at the hands of their parents or caregivers where there was previous CPS involvement. My light just went away. I urge you to do your research. You don't have to be a foster parent, but you should be aware of what's going on in your own community. And you should hug your children tightly and tell them you love them every day. I don't know what the answers are. But I can tell you that when I'm done fostering, when I have decided that it is enough for me and I'm done fostering, I'm going to get into lobbying for a change in the system. Something's got to give. But let me tell you, when I hear these stories, I'm angry. I'm mad. I'm mad for those children that they went through what they went through. And I'm mad that the system wasn't able to protect them better. That's really all I have. Again, if you guys have not seen the Trials of Gabriel Fernandez on Netflix, go look it up. It's really hard to watch, but it is enlightening. And there's a lot of situations very similar to it. Look up your area, see what's happened in your area. I can tell you that the deaths in my area have been far too frequent in the last couple months, and I'm not okay with it. I don't know what I'm going to do about it yet, but you better believe it's going to be something. I love you all. I will see you next time. Until then, go educate yourselves, go educate others, spread the word. I love you. Shine your light into the world, and just be kind to people. Bye.